Hello and welcome to Sunset Television. I'm Vishal Dahiya and you're watching Big Picture. Now today we're going to talk about emerging technologies and the global challenges therein. Now the leaders of the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, that is Quad, on Friday agreed to set up 3 working groups to facilitate vaccine distribution, innovative technologies and to strengthen climate actions globally as well, while recognizing that a free, open, inclusive and resilient Indo-Pacific requires that critical and emerging technology is governed and operates according to the shared interests and values. The leaders of the Quad countries have decided to convene a critical and emerging technology working group. The idea here seemingly is to go ahead and ensure that there is complete fairness when it comes to the emerging technology or the critical technology part therein. We'll try and understand not only the rationale behind setting up this working group, but also as to what are the challenges globally and opportunities therein as well when we talk about the emerging and critical technology. And for more on this, we're joined by a distinguished panel of guests. Let me first introduce them to you, beginning with Mr. R. Ramanan is joining us. He's Mission Director of the Atal Innovation Mission in Niti Aayog, and Mr. Jiten Jain, the digital technology expert, is also with us. Welcome, both of you gentlemen, to Sunset Television. Let me begin with you, Jiten. Let's start by putting the entire issue in perspective here. When we're talking about this working group being set up by the Quad vis-a-vis the emerging technologies, how big is the challenge globally in this particular area?
I think if you were to put the entire thing in a very simple perspective, the origin of Quad lies in the security of Indo-Pacific and the threat posed by Communist parties, PL and Navy. And that is the primary reason that their continued intrusions in the Indian Ocean, setting up bases across India, setting up string of pearls to encircle India, and to deal with those future challenges of Chinese Navy. The countries, the democratic countries which are very active and facing threat from Chinese Navy, namely Japan, Australia, India, and US, which operates largely in Indo-Pacific, decided to set up a joint mechanism called Quad. Now, for years, it has just been more of symbolic, in the form of a dialogue at security conferences or informal briefings or setting up joint mechanisms. But as PM rightly said in this summit, that Quad has now come to life in its full format. And for the first time, 4 state of heads have met together under the aegis of Quad. Now, in that thing, one thing which has been focused about, other than climate change and vaccine distribution, is the cooperation of innovating and emerging technologies. Now, this particular area has, I think, 2 connotations. One is mainly related to overall security of states. Second is to deal more on economic front. If you see that, the emergence of technology in last decade has, come in a way that all big militaries across the world are going towards network-centric warfare. They are looking for thin but more sharpened and more, techno-savvy armies. They are using drones. They are using autonomous weapons. They are, air forces across the world are looking at autonomous aircrafts to, go on wings on missions. You have had underwater sea missions being run by China. A submarine, Chinese automated submarine was caught by Indonesia. And then now you have the emergence of AI and machine learning, which is used towards creating new innovations, especially in vaccine too. So, and then theft of innovations by China. So and then in that context, the recent attack which India has faced in the power sector by Chinese malwares, or we have been continuously facing on our critical infrastructure, and this whole overarching debate about penetration of Chinese companies in the 5G sector, which is going to dominate the intelligence world in the next 50 years, and the threat posed by Chinese companies, which are nothing but a state-backed, intelligence empire running in the form of cheap gadgetry, be it Huawei, ZTE, or other companies. Or you also have to see the kind of threats posed by Chinese mobile apps, which are nothing but a new way of running massive surveillance on foreign citizens in the, which were banned by Indian government to preempt any surveillance during the military conflict. So that is one security, connotation where these countries wants to develop a standard where you can counter Chinese 5G and you can ensure that democratic countries have a dominant say on emerging technologies like 5G. And to sum up in next 20 seconds, the second challenge is more towards on the economic front, and which is more interesting to see, because kind of challenge and dominance big tech, especially the American big techs, are now throwing at the world today, like Facebook or Twitter, literally defying laws of the land in India, spreading anarchy in the name of free speech, openly challenging democratic governments and parliaments, like what happened in Australia, where they refused to comply with the laws of Australian Parliament. So there is a bigger debate across the world. How do we regulate big tech and ensure that these companies do not think that their policies are more superior to laws of individual countries, and these companies are not sovereign? It is the parliaments and the governments of those countries which are sovereign. So I think on those two fronts, these four democracies have decided that we must lead the world with a shining example, and we must cooperate on emerging technologies, both on security and economic fronts.
Okay. So there it is, the twin-pronged approach there specifically being adopted by the Quad nations to focus on the emerging technology aspect. Let me bring in Mr. Ramanan here as well. Mr. Ramanan, your views on the global challenges when we're talking about emerging technology domain, because as Jiten pointed out, there are various aspects which need to be taken into account when we are talking about road ahead from here onwards, and that involves not only technology but also economic aspect as well.
Right. Thank you, Vishal. And as you rightly pointed out, and as Jiten rightly pointed out, technology is changing the shape of the world. It's becoming affordable, accessible, available, and advanced. And with all these emerging technologies like AI or blockchain or Internet of Things or robotics or automation, all of these have very positive aspects on economic development. At the same time, we have to make sure that they can be leveraged for the good of the people, because the challenges, global challenges, are many today. Take, for example, a virus. A simple virus has disrupted supply chains across the world. It has created grievous lockdowns, disruption to lives and livelihoods. And there are other global pandemics that may be there lurking in the horizon. How do we ensure that we are in a state of readiness, leveraging technology to be able to address that? Then you take the example of population. Population of the world is now about 7.8 billion. But we still have a big social divide in most of the emerging economies. Countries like India, we still have 22% below the poverty line, 44% is agri-economy based, and more than 70% of our labor force is in small, medium, micro industries. And when we are talking about the digital divide or the social divide or the socio-economic divide, how do we start addressing that? And is technology going to enhance that gap, or is it going to bridge that gap? That is the challenge for all the countries. Then you take an example like water, which is becoming more and more, because of climate change issues and SDG challenges that we have. If there is not a concerted effort by countries, it is not technology alone which is going to solve this problem. Technology can be a great medium for solving this problem, but there you need cooperation and collaboration between countries to be able to address how are we going to have clean drinking water, how are you going to save water through water harvesting and global water challenges. For example, Atal Innovation Mission and Denmark and India and Denmark have signed a green strategy partnership that both the prime ministers have signed, and we launched the Global Water Challenge, where more than 80 countries participated because they all realized the importance of this. And then you talk about other things like, for example, disruption in supply chains. Disruption in supply chains and nationalistic fervors gripping the countries can actually create more problems. So how do we leverage digital technology to solve that? And things like AI, while there is a very positive side of AI, there is also now edge AI is coming up. That is the emerging trend where you're able to, at the edge, at the place where the person is interacting with the machine or the server or the device, you have localized AI, which is because of powerful computing capabilities and the ability to transmit large amounts of data using 5G and so on. You have edge AI, which is coming up. But how do you leverage edge AI for good? So if you see many of the conferences today, there is all this tremendous focus on how do we enhance peace, how do we reduce conflict, how do we address some of these global challenges that the SDG poses, and how do we ensure that there is an equitable, inclusive approach of leveraging technology for the good of the economy and the good of society. And therefore, these challenges can be addressed when you have countries coming together. And Quad is an example of coming together, of saying these are some of the common challenges that we have. It is not just your country or my country which has these challenges. It's common. I mean, take, for example, cybersecurity. It has become so very important now because cyber crimes and the ability of social media, as Jatan pointed out, to be able to disrupt and mislead potentially large numbers of people without being having any checks or balances in between can become a great issue. And by the time it is rectified, it can take a lot of time.
Okay, indeed, that is also very, very important aspect, leveraging technologies to achieve those goals on the ground, the targets which are being set for the development of the country or at a global level as well. Jiten, I'd like to bring you in here on a very important aspect. You referred to that in your first response as well. That is, with all these new age technologies coming into picture and the convergence of technologies as well, be it artificial intelligence or the 5G technology, the data intensive technologies. One very important question here is, an aspect really is ensuring the security, the national security in both terms, in terms of security of data as well as the entire framework, entire network as well. So that also becomes really important. It's not only just about the software, it's about the hardware as well.
You see, it's a challenge, that kind of penetration, and you can't compare China with any other country. They are the most hostile threat to the entire world today, be it any democracy, be it Australia, England, America, or Europe, or New Zealand, any democracy you can call. So the problem is the kind of investments in AI, what is being made in China, outcasts the total investment made by the entire rest of the world. So, while AI may be, great, it may be leapfrogging, helping us leapfrog into the future. It may, today that kind of AI which is used by Perseverance on the Mars rover used by NASA on Mars, it's phenomenal when it comes to, human development. But it is more like a glass. It is beautiful as long as it is a mirror and shows your beautiful face. But once it is broken, it can turn into the most dangerous weapon. So simply the threat of countries like China weaponizing internet and AI is the challenge all countries are going to face today. The kind of dependence we are having on Chinese gadgets and equipment in the critical infrastructure like telecom, power, and shipping and transportation is phenomenal, and there is no way we could remove these dependencies in the next 4 to 5 years. So we are almost becoming like a sitting Dutch, where our critical infrastructure can be exploited anytime because of state-sponsored behavior these companies portray when they are pressured by Chinese government. So security of state, the survival of state in the statecraft, and ensuring that these Chinese spywares, or especially the compromise gadgets, and there have been ample examples of these companies conniving with Chinese state security agencies and intelligence agencies to snoop across the world. So that is a challenge. And once you recognize the challenge, the problem is, what is the alternative? Do we have a company, or do we have a country where enough matching technology is available at the similar cost? No. So I think that is where the cooperation is required. Can we develop a parallel standard of 5G, like India has applied for one standard? Once we have a common standard and technological development, can we bring down the cost? And that cannot be done by a country like India or US alone. You have to cooperate. And that is the reason why when India banned 59 apps, US also went on to ban several Chinese apps, several Chinese companies, especially the 5G companies like Huawei, ZTE. And then they also went on to declare Chinese press agencies like Xinhua as state foreign missions. So this is what we are facing today, that any Chinese company today is nothing but a front of state. There is no independent private enterprise in China. But you are seeing what is happening to the most innovative technology company in China, like Alibaba. You do not have any news about Jack Ma for last 3 months.
Okay.
And you will not be surprised that one day he pops up in a Chinese school run by Communist Party, reforming him, or a reforming school, right? Detention camps are running in Xinjiang. It has happened in the past. It is happening now. It can happen again. So world cannot depend on Chinese technology. You have to find an alternative. We have already missed the bus. As the world sees the dawn of digital age, we must ensure that we cooperate together to ensure the security and safety of our democracies.
Okay, Mr. Ramanan, your views on this security aspect, and not only with respect to software, but also, the hardware. As Jiten was pointing out, there are several sectors where we need to go ahead and ensure that the security aspect is taken care of.
Yeah, I think, when you look at India right now, and India is at the cusp, I would say, of a watershed moment in its history, where you have a fast-growing economy, you have a demographic dividend, you have very, very bright young engineers coming out of our institutions. We have more than 65% of our population under 35 years old, and you have advancing technology which is becoming available. And India has become to be known as a potential knowledge capital of the world. It is also one of the fastest growing startup nations of the world. So I think there is a huge opportunity now for India to get into hardware. It has proven itself in software in terms of service capability. I mean, we are a $190 billion IT/ITES industry now servicing the rest of the world. But I don't see any reason why Indian engineers cannot become foremost in design and their design engineering and manufacturing, being able to create, leverage IR 4.0 technologies, because we are writing code for all of this for many other countries. So this is the time and this is the opportunity for us to direct our sight inwards. And actually the Honorable Prime Minister's Atmanirbhar Bharat clarion call is so very relevant at this time, because it can really spawn a huge hardware industry, thereby assuring ourselves of security, not only from the point of view of dependency and reducing our import dependency, but we can actually become the exporters to the world. We recently read about the news that Apple has decided to manufacture iPhone 12 phones in India. And that sort of thing can really multiply, because we today have the know-how. What was lacking in manufacturing world of India was this aspect of quality and the ability for precision technologies and so on and so forth. That has now become available. And so I think there is a huge opportunity for India to leverage innovation, entrepreneurship, and boost Make in India innovations in the MSME world to a great extent. And that's where organizations like Atal Innovation Mission are also engaged in very actively to promote this.
Okay, definitely. Organizations like our Atal Innovation Mission are doing a lot of good work on the ground out there, rightly pointed out by Mr. Raman. And Jiten, I'd like to, let's focus, shift focus a little bit here, and let's talk about how today's age is more or less, it's about merger of digital and physical economies, as you pointed out earlier. Now, if you're looking at it in that context, and if we have to understand it in a much better way in terms of the global challenges, we'll also have to focus on what exactly are India's need, what exactly, where does India's interest lie? And when we're talking about this concerted effort being made by, nations like Quad grouping, how can those assimilate much better with the work being done on the ground in India, and what more needs to be done?
You see, as Sir rightly pointed out, we have transformed ourselves from agrarian economy to industrial economy now. Now, service economy, you would say that now time has come that we must not be the service center of the world. We must be the innovation and development powerhouse. Now, for that, I think let's take a few examples. If you look at share market today, our stock exchange had to be shut down. It suffered because of power outage in Mumbai. And then later on, it had to shut down because suddenly there was a disruption in the internet traffic. And despite of having two lines, so you don't know whether it is a cyber attack or whether it was a genuine fault. But then it shows the dependence of our economies on the technology today. The kind of reforms Prime Minister or the government is trying to drive in the agrarian sector by, creating this farmer reforms to ensure that every farmer has access to some sort of digital mandi where they can sell their crop from one state to another and get the live price inputs, and they can get instant payments without linking to anything. And this is what farmers have also been demanding. Ki, bhai, जब सबको ऑनलाइन बैंकिंग 5 मिनट में पैसा आ रहा है, then why if you buy something on Amazon, you pay in 5 minutes, they receive in 10, then why do farmers have to wait for months to get the price for their crops? So why don't government also bring digital India to the farmers, and so that they can also get live prices, live trading and live stuff? So government has been trying to drive technology into every sector. If you look at public services delivery, every village today is connected with a national internet backbone. Government has ensured that all public services have a common service center, which are so that anybody who doesn't have a smartphone and doesn't have an internet, he can go to public center. He doesn't have to go to a big city to get the basic work done. You are using technology and the combination of physical infrastructure you have to do doorstep banking by running postal bank. I mean, today you can call a postman and deposit money. So there is we are in a very different situation. There is a huge difference in population in our economies. We are rural India, where we have lacked basic infrastructure for a long period of time. So opening Jan Dhan account online and then ensuring that you can smoothly transfer and deposit money, then linking it to subsidies to get, so that using technology and Aadhaar, you can get direct benefits without losing money to a dalal or a beach wala, giving in some favors. So the reforms are happening on ground. The Jan Dhan, Aadhaar, and the mobile infrastructure which is available in India today, the trinity of JAM, there is no example in the world where any program of digitization of such a massive scale has been undertaken in such a short span of time. So it does have limitations, but I think we are in a watershed moment that we are trying to attempt what should have otherwise happened in 25 years to do something in 10 years. And that is why focusing on future is very, very critical, and the security is very, very critical.
Indeed, indeed, it is a watershed movement, and that is a very crucial, time and age we're living in, wherein this merger of digital and physical economies is taking place. That obviously throws up a lot of challenges and opportunities as well. Mr. Ramanan, I'd like to have your concluding comments before we bring this discussion to an end on the way we have to move ahead in terms of, this merger of both aspects and the kind of, opportunities, obviously, and challenges as well. We've done a lot of work on the ground, as both of you have pointed out. But from here onwards, what more needs to be done?
I think it's very important for us to first and foremost look at the entire aspect of development of a country, both from a social point of view as well as from an economic point of view, as far as India is concerned. And I think as far as the world is concerned, that is true for them too. But how do we now leverage and embrace technology to drive this? Because technology has become an integral part of the solutions that we can create. And secondly, I think it's very important for us to look at how we empower our youth to think problem solving and innovative thing. It is very important. We have been a great service economy country for the rest of the world. How do we now become the solution makers? How do we become the change makers in the world of tomorrow? And here, because of whatever advances we have already made and the juxtaposition of a fast growing economy, a demographic dividend, advancing technology, and an aspirational youth, and the demand which is there, the pillar of demand that the Honorable Prime Minister says, that is huge. I mean, all countries are flocking to India. We should not allow our entrepreneurs and innovators to miss this bus and miss this opportunity of addressing this huge demand that we have. And in that process, the going vocal for local and thereby going global becomes a smooth transition, a seamless transition, and every product and every solution and every service that we are able to render from our country, leveraging emerging technologies, be it AI, IoT, or augmented reality, virtual reality, space technology, defense technology, and so on, this is going to be also a solution for the rest of the world. So we have to seize the moment and be able to move on it, capitalize on it, and build ourselves as one of the most innovative nations of the world.
Okay, Jiten, would you like to add something at the end here?
I would say only 2 lines that 5 years ago, New York Times issued an advertisement making fun of ISRO, which was, nothing but an insult towards India. Today, the technology is what we're demonstrating in the form of Aadhaar or Jan Dhan banking to Mars orbiter mission, which is more of a technology demonstrator. I think we have come a long way. And the kind of pace at which this country is moving, trying to turn obstacles into stepping stones. I think, kudos to many organizations like Atal Innovation Mission, which has, spread technology at the grassroots, has taken technology and development to the small government schools where several students like me who studied in government schools did not even have access to computers. So, government's focus to bring technology to the door of a, size of population which was denied that right to technology, I think that is going to change the future of India. And my compliments to the work which have been done, phenomenal work which has been done by many organizations like Atal Innovation Mission.
Okay, definitely. And well-quoted example out there, Jiten. Obviously, we've come a long way, but there is a much longer journey ahead. Thank you so much, Jiten Jain, as well as Mr. Ramanan, for sharing your views and insight on this very important aspect which touches all our lives. And from here onwards, the kind of times we live in, it is going to be really important as to what kind of emerging and critical technologies which we are working on. How does that impact not only our national security, the global security, regional security challenges, but also the economic aspect of it as well. We'll come back again with a different topic and obviously different aspects of this topic as well. Till then, you keep watching Sunset Television. Thank you.